What happens when a living legend sits down for what should be a simple morning chat and finds himself under attack from a host who seems determined to tear him down? It only took 34 seconds for Lorraine Kelly to ignite a fire that would consume her entire show and leave one of music's most beloved icons walking off her stage. Paul McCartney arrived at the studio that morning expecting a pleasant conversation. He had done thousands of interviews over his decades-long career. He knew the routine. A few questions about his latest project, maybe a story or two about the old days, some laughs, and everyone goes home happy. But from the moment he sat down on that couch, something felt different. Something felt wrong. Lorraine Kelly sat across from him with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Next to her were two other panelists, Christine Lampard and Ranveer Singh, both looking ready for what they assumed would be another cheerful morning segment. The studio audience clapped as Paul settled into his seat, giving a warm wave to everyone. "Paul McCartney, welcome to the show," Lorraine began, her voice dripping with a strange kind of sweetness that felt forced. "We are so thrilled to have you here. I mean, when does someone like you have time for a show like ours?" Paul smiled politely, not catching the subtle dig. "Well, I always make time to chat with people. It is nice to connect." "Right, connect," Lorraine said, nodding slowly. "So tell me, Paul, do you ever get tired of talking about the Beatles? I mean, it has been, 60 years? Do you ever want people to just move on?" The question hung in the air like a grenade. Christine and Ranveer exchanged uncomfortable glances. Paul's smile faltered just slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Well, the Beatles were a huge part of my life," Paul said carefully. "I am proud of what we accomplished. People seem to still enjoy the music, so I do not mind talking about it." "But do not you think it is a bit sad?" Lorraine pressed, leaning forward. "Clinging to glory days from decades ago? I mean, what have you really done lately that matters?" The audience went silent. You could hear the shock rippling through the room. Christine tried to jump in. "Lorraine, I think Paul's recent work has been quite—" "I'm asking, Paul." Lorraine cut her off sharply, not even looking at Christine. Her eyes stayed locked on Paul. "I want to know what he thinks. Do you ever feel like you were just riding on the coattails of John Lennon's genius?" Paul's face tightened. His fingers gripped the arm of the couch. "John was brilliant, absolutely, but we were partners. We wrote together. We created together." "Did you, though?" Lorraine shot back. "I have read plenty of accounts that suggest John did most of the heavy lifting. You were just sort of there, playing your bass, looking cute for the cameras." Ranveer shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Lorraine, maybe we should talk about Paul's new album." "Oh, is there a new album?" Lorraine said mockingly. "I had not noticed. Does anyone actually listen to new Paul McCartney music, or do they just want to hear Yesterday for the millionth time?" Paul took a deep breath. His legendary patience was being tested in ways it rarely had been. "Lorraine, I am not sure what you are trying to accomplish here, but what I'm trying to accomplish," Lorraine interrupted, her voice rising, "is to have an honest conversation. I'm tired of these interviews where everyone just kisses up to celebrities and pretends everything they do is wonderful. You have been in this business forever, Paul. Surely you can handle a few tough questions." "Tough questions are fine," Paul said, his voice still controlled but with an edge now. "But you are not asking tough questions. You are being deliberately rude." "Rude?" Lorraine laughed, a harsh sound. "I am being honest. Maybe no one has been honest with you in so long that you have forgotten what it sounds like." Christine tried again. "I think we are getting off track here. Paul, your contribution to music is undeniable. The Beatles changed everything." "Did they?" Lorraine snapped at Christine. "Or did they just make catchy pop songs that people remember fondly because of nostalgia? I mean, let us be real here. The Beatles were no different than any other boy band. They just happened to come along at the right time." The audience gasped. Several people started murmuring. Paul sat up straighter, his jaw set. "That is absolutely ridiculous," Paul said, his voice firm now. "You can criticize me all you want, but to dismiss what the Beatles meant to music, to culture, that is just ignorant." "Ignorant?" Lorraine's eyes flashed. "I am ignorant? I am the one willing to say what everyone else is thinking. You are a has-been, Paul. You have been dining out on four lads from Liverpool for your entire life. When was the last time you wrote anything that actually mattered?" "Lorraine, stop," Ranveer said, her voice pleading. "This is not okay." "Do not tell me what is okay on my own show," Lorraine barked at Ranveer. I will run this interview however I see fit. Paul stood up slowly. The microphone pack on his belt became visible as his jacket shifted. I think I have heard enough. Oh, you are leaving? Lorraine said with mock surprise. Cannot handle a little criticism? I thought you were supposed to be this tough guy who survived the Beatles' breakup and John's death and everything else. But apparently, you are just a fragile old man who needs everyone to tell him how wonderful he is. You do not know anything about me, Paul said quietly, but his words carried weight. You sit here in your comfortable studio, behind your desk, and you think you can judge my entire life and career based on what? Your need to create drama for ratings? This is not about ratings, Lorraine insisted, but her voice wavered slightly. Of course it is. About ratings? Paul continued. You brought me here thinking you could make a name for yourself by tearing down someone people actually care about. But here is what you do not understand. I have earned the respect I have. I have worked for over 60 years, making music that brings people joy. What have you done except sit here and tear people down? Christine started clapping. Slowly at first, then with more conviction. Ranveer joined her. Then members of the audience began to clap too. Lorraine looked around, her face reddening. Stop that, Lorraine demanded. This is my show. Stop clapping for him. But the applause grew louder. Paul began walking toward the exit at the side of the stage. Where do you think you are going? Lorraine called after him. We are not done here. You do not just get to walk off my show. Paul turned back briefly. Actually, I do. I have given thousands of interviews to people who were prepared, who were professional, who had actual questions to ask. I do not need to waste my time with someone who is just looking for a fight. This is unbelievable, Lorraine said, standing up from her chair. You are proving my point. You cannot handle any criticism. There is a difference between criticism and cruelty, Paul said. And you crossed that line the moment I sat down. You know what the saddest part is? I came here in good faith. I was looking forward to this. But you had already decided how this was going to go before I even walked through that door. Lorraine took a few steps toward him. Oh, so now I am the villain? I am the bad person for asking real questions? You did not ask real questions, Paul replied, his voice steady. You made attacks disguised as questions. You tried to diminish everything I have done, everything the Beatles accomplished, because apparently that makes for good television in your mind. The Beatles are overrated, Lorraine said. Doubling down. I said it. Someone needed to say it. You are. Entitled to your opinion, Paul said, but you are not entitled to be cruel. You are not entitled to ambush your guests and try to humiliate them on live television. Christine stood up from the panel. Paul, I am so sorry. This is not what any of us expected. I know it is not your fault, Paul said kindly to Christine and Ranveer. You two were trying to keep things civil. I appreciate that. Lorraine stepped between Paul and the other panelists. Do not talk to them. Talk to me. Defend yourself. Defend your legacy. Or are you too scared? I do not need to defend anything to you, Paul said simply. My work speaks for itself. Millions of people around the world have connected with the music I have made. It has been the soundtrack to their lives, their weddings, their first dances, their road trips with friends. That means something. That matters. And no amount of your nastiness can take that away. How noble, Lorraine said sarcastically. The great Paul McCartney, too good for my little show. It is not about being too good, Paul said. It is about self-respect. I respect myself too much to sit here and be verbally abused by someone who clearly has some kind of agenda. A producer appeared from off stage, looking panicked. He tried to whisper something to Lorraine, but she waved him away angrily. Get back to your seat, Lorraine commanded Paul. We have 10 more minutes in this segment. I am not sitting back down, Paul said firmly. This interview is over. You are under contract, Lorraine threatened. You agreed to be here for the full segment. Sue me? Paul said with a slight shrug. I have good lawyers. The audience laughed at that. Even some of the crew members were smiling. Lorraine's face grew even redder. You think this is funny? She yelled at the audience. He is walking out on you. On all of you. You came here to see Paul McCartney, and he is leaving because I asked him a few questions he did not like. No, someone from... The audience shouted. He is leaving because you were horrible to him. Other voices joined in, agreeing with that assessment. Lorraine spun around, trying to locate who had spoken. Security? She called out. Remove anyone who is disrupting the show. You are the one disrupting the show, Ranveer said quietly. but loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Lorraine turned on Ranveer. "What did you just say to me?" "I said you are disrupting the show," Ranveer repeated, more loudly this time. "Paul came here to have a conversation. You turned it into an attack. This is not journalism. This is not even entertainment. This is just mean." "I do not have to listen to this," Lorraine said. "From any of you. This is my show. My name is on it. I decide how it goes. And you decided to burn it to the ground," Christine added. "For what? What did you gain from this?" Paul watched this exchange from near the exit. Part of him wanted to just leave, to walk out and never think about this. Morning again. But another part of him felt bad for Christine and Ranveer, who were clearly uncomfortable with what was happening. "Lorraine," Paul said, drawing her attention back to him, "it is not too late to end this with some dignity. Just let me go. Apologize to your audience for wasting their time. Move on to your next segment. We can all forget this happened." "Apologize?" Lorraine scoffed. "For what? For having standards? For not buying into the Paul McCartney myth?" "The only myth here is that you are a serious interviewer," Paul said, his patience finally exhausted. "A serious interviewer does research. They ask thoughtful questions. They listen to their guests. They do not come in with a predetermined narrative and try to force their guest into it." "I did my research," Lorraine insisted. "I know all about you. I know about the Beatles breaking up. I know about your feuds with the other members. I know about how you tried to control everything. I know about the lawsuits. I know about your massive ego." "You do not know anything," Paul said, shaking his head. "You read some tabloid articles, and you think you understand my life. You have no idea what it was like. The pressure, the scrutiny, the impossible expectations. We were 4 kids who got more famous than anyone should ever be. Did we make mistakes? Of course we did. Did we argue? Yes. Did we hurt each other sometimes? Absolutely. But we also loved each other. We created something beautiful together, and no amount of revisionist history or cynical commentary changes that." "How touching," Lorraine said. "Is that the speech you have been rehearsing for years? Your defense of the Beatles' legacy?" "I do not need to rehearse it," Paul said. "I lived it, every single day of it, the good and the bad. And I am still here, still making music, still trying to connect with people through art." "What are you doing, Lorraine? What is your legacy going to be? This interview? Is this how you want to be remembered? As the person who was cruel to Paul McCartney for no reason?" Lorraine opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time since the interview started, she seemed unsure of herself. The producer stepped forward again. "Lorraine, we need to go to commercial." "No," Lorraine snapped. "We are not going to commercial. We are finishing this." "There is nothing to finish," Paul said. "I am leaving, right now." He turned and walked toward the exit. Lorraine rushed after him. "You cannot just leave," she shouted. "I have more questions." Paul stopped and turned back one more time. "Then you should have asked them respectfully. You should have treated me like a human being instead of a target, but you did not. So now I am exercising my right to leave a hostile environment." "Hostile environment?" Lorraine laughed bitterly. "You are such a diva." "No," Paul said calmly. "I am someone who knows my worth, and I am worth more than this. Goodbye, Lorraine. I hope someday you figure out that being cruel is not the same as being interesting." With that, Paul McCartney walked off the stage. The audience erupted in applause, standing and cheering for him. Christine and Ranveer stood as well, clapping along with everyone else. Lorraine stood in the middle of the stage, alone, looking around at a room full of people who were clearly not on her side. "Sit down," she commanded the audience. "All of you, sit down." But no one listened. The applause continued, growing even louder. Some people started chanting Paul's name. Lorraine grabbed her microphone. "Fine. If you all want to worship someone who could not handle a real interview, go ahead. But do not come crying to me when you realize he is just a person, just like everyone else. He is not special. He is not a god. He is just a man who got lucky 60 years ago." The audience booed, loudly. Lorraine flinched at the sound. Christine walked over to Lorraine and took the microphone from her hand. "I think we need to take that commercial break now," Christine said into the microphone, her voice steady and professional. The camera cut away. In the control room, producers were panicking, trying to figure out what to do next. On stage, Lorraine stood frozen, seemingly in shock at what had just happened. Ranveer approached her carefully. "Are you okay?" "Why would you ask me that?" Lorraine snapped. "I am fine. I am more than fine. I just exposed Paul McCartney for the fraud he is." That is not what happened, Ranveer said gently. You attacked him, Lorraine. You were unnecessarily cruel. Everyone saw it. I was honest, Lorraine insisted. Why is no one getting this? I was the only one willing to be honest. There is a difference between honesty and cruelty, Christine said, echoing Paul's earlier words. You crossed a line. Multiple lines, actually. Backstage, Paul was being ushered toward the exit by concerned staff members. Someone brought him his coat. Another person apologized profusely, saying this had never happened before, that they had no idea Lorraine was going to behave that way. It is all right, Paul said to them. Not your fault. These things happen. But even as he said it, he felt shaken. In all his years of doing interviews, he had faced difficult questions before. He had been challenged, pushed, even criticized. But this was different. This had been personal, vindictive. Lorraine had not been trying to get answers or insights. She had been trying to hurt him. Back on stage, the commercial break was ending. The producers told Lorraine she needed to address what had happened when they came back on air. She refused. We are moving on, she said firmly. Next segment, next guest. You cannot just move on, the producer said desperately. The whole country just watched you drive Paul McCartney off your show. You have to say something. I will say what I want to say, Lorraine replied coldly. When the cameras came back on, Lorraine was sitting at her desk, composed, as if nothing unusual had happened. Christine and Ranveer were back in their seats as well, though both looked deeply uncomfortable. Welcome back, Lorraine said with a forced smile. Unfortunately, Paul McCartney has decided he could not continue with our interview. So we are going to move on to our next segment. Wait, Christine interrupted. Should we not talk about what just happened? There is nothing to talk about, Lorraine said tersely. I think there is plenty to talk about, Ranveer added. Paul is a legend. He deserved better than what just happened here. He is a man, Lorraine said sharply. Just a man. And he should be able to handle tough questions like any other guest. Those were not tough questions, Christine said, her voice rising. Those were attacks. You questioned his talent, his legacy, his entire career. And for what? What did you hope to accomplish? I hope to have a real conversation, Lorraine said. But apparently, he was not interested in that. He was interested, Ranveer countered, until you made it impossible for him to stay. You ambushed him. You disrespected him. And you disrespected this show and everyone watching. Lorraine's face flushed with anger. How dare you, both of you? This is my show. I decide how interviews go. And if you do not like it, you can leave too. Maybe we should, Christine said quietly. The tension in the studio was suffocating. The audience sat in stunned silence, watching what was essentially a mutiny unfold on live television. Fine, Lorraine said, standing up. Leave. All of you can leave. I do not need any of you. I can host this show by myself. No one is leaving. The producer's voice came through the speakers, clearly panicked. Everyone stay where you are. Lorraine, we need you to calm down. Do not tell me to calm down, Lorraine shouted toward the control room. This is my show. You all seem to keep forgetting that. We are not forgetting anything, Christine said. But you seem to be forgetting that this show exists because people want to feel good in the morning. They want uplifting conversations and interesting guests. They do not want to watch you tear people apart. Then maybe they should watch something else, Lorraine shot back. Ranveer shook her head sadly. After today, I think a lot of them will. The camera operators did not know where to point their cameras. The producers did not know whether to cut to commercial again or keep rolling. Everything was falling apart in real time. Lorraine sat back down heavily in her chair. For just a moment, her facade cracked. She looked tired, defeated. But then she pulled herself together, straightening her spine and lifting her chin. We are going to continue with the show, she said flatly. Bring out the next guest. But there was no recovering from what had happened. The damage was done. Paul McCartney, one of the most beloved musicians in the world, had walked off the show after being relentlessly attacked by the host. And everyone had seen it. Everyone had heard it. There was no spinning this. No way to make it look like anything other than what it was. A complete disaster. As the show limped toward its conclusion, Lorraine maintained her defiant stance. She refused to apologize. She refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. She acted as if the entire incident was no big deal, just another day at the office. But Christine and Ranveer knew better. The audience knew better. The crew knew better. And somewhere, Paul McCartney knew better. He had walked away with his dignity intact, while Lorraine sat in the wreckage of what she had created, alone and unrepentant, unable or unwilling to see what she had done. The interview that was supposed to be a pleasant morning chat had turned into something else entirely, a moment that would be replayed, discussed, and analyzed for years to come. Not because of anything Paul did, but because of what Lorraine chose to do. She had the chance to have a meaningful conversation with a legend. Instead, she turned it into a battlefield. And in doing so, she revealed more about herself than she ever did about him. Paul had said it best on his way out. Being cruel is not the same as being interesting. Lorraine had tried to make a moment, to create something memorable, and she had succeeded, but not in the way she intended. She would be remembered for this, just not the way she hoped. The show ended. The credits rolled. And in studios and living rooms and offices across the country, people sat in shock at what they had just witnessed. Some were angry, some were sad, but almost everyone agreed on one thing. Paul McCartney had handled himself with grace and dignity in an impossible situation, and Lorraine Kelly had shown the world exactly who she was.